Good afternoon. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on, the Whadjuk people. I wish to acknowledge and respect the continuing culture and the contributions they make to the life of the city and this region. In particular, I wish to pay tribute to the traditional women healers. Young women, you are the future, and it's a privilege to be amidst the makers of tomorrow's world. Today, there are few areas where women have not ventured into. From the outer space to the depths of the ocean, women can be seen making their mark. I hope some among you are considering a career in surgery, especially orthopedics. And if you did, you'd find yourself in a very satisfying field. There's an old Chinese saying that says a surgeon should have the eye of an eagle, the heart of a lion, and the fingers of a lady. You get the picture. Courage, keen vision, and of course a delicate and dexterous touch. If you have not visited a real operating theatre, you may have at least seen the images on television screens where men and women dressed in their sterile outfits go about cutting and fixing patients who lie in deep anesthetic slumber. There is the red stuff, not everyone's cup of tea. There is quiet efficiency, some controlled panic, and moments of triumph and elation. The privilege to wield a knife over another is not one that could be taken casually. As there are medical students here amidst you, you will no doubt take the Hippocratic Oath when you graduate. Primum non nocere, first do no harm, is a dictum we all strive for. So we wield our knives and enter bodies with care and reverence to fix what we see as wrong. After the last suture has been placed, we leave nature's miracle to do the rest of the healing. The satisfaction and high you experience at the end as you pull off your bloodied glove and sterile gowns, knowing you have fixed a problem, is incomparable with any high that you could possibly get. Yet it's not always that easy or rosy. Things go wrong. Patients bleed and complications happen. The hours can be long and the sacrifices many. You may miss out on family events and frustration and loneliness can overcome you. But through it all, there is the wonder and magic of healing that keeps you going. Besides these everyday frustrations of working in surgical specialties, women often also have to encounter behaviors that are somewhat archaic, thereby making their job needlessly difficult. I'm of course referring to the attitudes of some male surgeons towards women entering a field that has traditionally been a man's world. Times are changing and we are moving into a world where our gender should not be a consideration in our career choices. There are still areas where men continue to dominate and women are marginalized. But this can be and should be changed. It has long been held by the male practitioners of orthopedics that it's a specialty unsuited to the fairer sex because of the need for brute force. Picture this. Let me take you to the images hanging on the walls of old royal colleges. You have the screaming victim of perhaps a saber-toothed tiger's attack, having bottles of benumbing brandy poured down his throat, while few other men in tunic are holding his leg down and amputating it with a large saw. In such a situation, I, and I'm sure every one of you here, would gladly defer to a male surgeon. Yet this image belongs on the walls of old royal colleges. Times have changed, societal values have changed, and importantly, technology has changed. Developments in anesthetics, muscle relaxants, and power instruments have leveled the playing fields with respect to the need for strength. The focus today is on good technique, and brute strength may even be a disadvantage. And dare I say that I believe a woman adept with a kitchen whisk is probably better suited to orthopedics than a clumsy lumberjack. I'm reminded of an incident early in my career when, as a young orthopedic surgeon in India in a new hospital, I was scrubbed up and ready to operate on a patient's broken arm. The somewhat older anesthetist looked up look me up and down and ask for the real surgeon when I enter the theatre, all dressed up in my sterile outfit. When I pleaded guilty, he marched off to the adjacent theatre where my seniors were operating and went on to ask them if I was old enough, competent enough, or qualified enough to do the job. He came back, and under his watchful eye, I continued with the procedure. Happy to say that he later became a good friend of mine. But we are still a rare entity, and eyebrows are still raised. And that's interesting because though over 50% of the global entrants into our medical schools are women, by the time orthopedic training is completed, more than 96% of orthopedic surgeons are men. So when a woman attempts to enter the world of bones, she's trespassing on traditional grounds hallowed by men. For orthopedics was started as a trade guild by barber surgeons a few centuries ago. The tangible remnants of this trade guild can be seen in the red and white poles seen outside the barber shops, the red indicating blood and white the bandages used. And you may also have noticed that when you go and attend your surgeons, you normally address them as Mr. and not Doctor, because this harks back to the time when they were not proper doctors, just barbers with sharp tools. The intangible remnants, however, are preserved in the attitudes within these guilds, which are sometimes called associations. Now, these guilds operated under a different set of values, where women were marginalized, science threatened their antiquated ways, and allegiance to older members was a greater determinant of success than merit. This refusal to embrace modernity by some of the orthopedic surgeons is not without consequence to the larger Australian public. Various academic disciplines, as we know globally, have shown us that their own paths to greater scientific development have been paved through the modernization of their workforce by the inclusion of women and the embrace of diversity. Orthopedics has spectacularly failed in this regard, and we need to learn from these organizations, not because women need orthopedics, but because orthopedics needs women for its own scientific advancement. Some of you young women, I hope, will be part of that force which will usher orthopedics into the 21st century. So for those of you who are considering a career in surgery, there is not just the excitement of being part of a very rewarding profession, but also an opportunity to make sure that women can express their talent in an area where they have been traditionally excluded, and for no good reason. By choosing orthopedics, you could find yourself at the cutting edge, I hope you note the pun, of medicine. I see your college motto is Nisi Deum Vivere, to know God is to live. When I was at medical school in India, I had a professor who said that in medicine you could pursue three gods: the god of wealth, god of service, or the god of knowledge. So when one smartass wanted to know which was the best god to follow, he replied that as long as you chose the ethical path to achieve any of these, they were all equally acceptable options. Orthopedics is interesting in that it offers you a chance to follow all these gods simultaneously. There is plenty of opportunity to do research. I myself meandered into that and made some exciting findings in fracture healing. You could take your services to parts of Australia or faraway countries where they could be put to good use. And may I assure you, the financial rewards are pretty satisfying. The task for women today is to rescue it from people holding it hostage and move it into the 21st century and ensure women interested in the specialty can move in and take their rightful place. My book, Slice Girls, is my contribution that I hope can potentially bring about a change in the surgical world, especially the world of orthopedics. It is also my contribution to make sure that the path for all of you who consider surgery as a career will be made somewhat easier. I hope you will find a more hospitable terrain where your talents can flourish and your skills can be put to good use, unobstructed by destructive male attitudes. Things are no doubt beginning to change, but there is still a long way to go. When more women enter the field and more competition is introduced and the monopoly status of institutions such as the Royal Colleges is removed, we hope the mediocrity that is fostered will give way to excellence. I do look forward to the future generations of women to infuse science and research and to move orthopedics into the arena of a scientific discipline where it rightfully belongs and not leave it languishing as a trade. Slice Girls has been referred to as a feminist reflection, yet my brand of feminism is somewhat different in its socio-political context. Equality is the operational word for this third wave of feminism. But I do not want to be equal to a man. Gender is biology, and biology is sacred. The Institute of Science has let us know that every cell in our body has a sex. Men and women, we are different, right down to our cellular and molecular level. And so we are different intellectually, physically, emotionally, and in our capabilities. Our differences are not just confined to our reproductive function. We should avoid valuing women on male terms. Women bring a dynamism that is quite different to the one brought by men. Looking at the contribution that women have made across the generations, I dare say that we have sustained life and the integrity of the planet in a more conscious fashion. After all, we are life givers and not life takers. And so women, we are indeed the lucky winners in the lottery of life. Men and women, we each have our strength, and if we played to them, we would not have to go seeking equality. So while equality is not my clarion call, equity is. For a man or a woman to pursue his or her passion is a birthright we should all respect. If a girl wants to be a seamstress, she should be one. If she wants to be an astronaut, let her be. And like I say in my book, if she wants to be an orthopedic surgeon, she should not be thwarted. I guess many of you here are rather too young to remember Germaine Greer's contribution or what she has done for the enhancement of women's cause. However, she's done a great deal, and I was delighted to be at the Writers' Festival alongside her at Margaret River a few weeks ago. But I do not agree with her famous statement that women have very little idea of how much men hate them. Men do not hate women. After all, they are sons of mothers, brothers to sisters, fathers to daughters, and husbands to wives, who they love and possibly even admire. It's more a case of women having very little idea about how much men fear them, at least some men. Men who are on the top of their game, rounded and mature, would not feel threatened by a woman because he rests safe in his identity. However, it's the insecure, the immature, and the intimidated man who exhibits a great degree of infantilism, especially at work, and appear to be fighting some kind of a girl germ. It's been shown that in the surgical world, women make as good or possibly even better surgeons than men. They have fewer complications, fewer morbidity and mortality, and generally exhibit greater compassion in their practice. Being more ethical in their approach, they provide a more affordable healthcare. Specialities that have embraced women and diversity, as we know, exhibit greater science and research. It is these qualities in women that seem to intimidate some men. We most definitely do not need to compete to be like them, for then I believe we would be selling us short. We just need to be ourselves. We often hear boys will be boys. As a mother to a son, now a young geologist, as the daughter of a doting father who has since passed, and I pay my tributes to him, as the sister of an indulgent brother and the wife of a loving man, I do know that boys will be boys and men will be men, and sometimes to my vexation. I wish to celebrate their masculinity, their physicality and exuberance. All I ask is let our girls be girls, and while they pursue their dreams, let them not be obstructed, and most importantly, let us celebrate their femininity. Allow them to maintain their identity in workplaces and not strive for success as defined in the masculine world. And so women, young and not so young, claim your place because you have so much more to offer than you realize. Thank you.